Hi all of you awesome scuba divers out there, welcome to Scuba Dive Magazine and welcome to Ask Mark, our scuba diving Q&A, where I, Mark, the former scuba diving instructor, do my best to answer your scuba diving questions. So if you do have any scuba questions, by all means, pop them down in the comment section underneath this video. Use this Ask Mark hashtag in your comments, beginning or the end, wherever, it doesn't really matter, and I'll get to it as soon as possible, so you do get a typed out answer, and if I can, I'll turn it into a video like this one, and the community as well. They're very good at answering questions in the comments section, so well done everybody. Today I'm answering a question about disassembling your regulators from GH2443. So GH2443 says, "Hi Mark, I do about 4 trips per year for warm water recreational diving. Is there a problem with disassembling my hoses and regulators for travel and storage? I protect the exposed hose ends from damage and debris with rubber caps. I also like the fact that all of my hoses hang straight with no tension when stored. I ask because I do not see anybody else following this practice. I look forward to your thoughts." The biggest problems that I can see of like disassembling your regulators between diving trips is going to be like increasing the risk of cross-threading them the next time you go to reassemble them, because it's all soft marine grade brass, and contaminants from getting in. The fact that you've mentioned hose caps leads me to think that you're fairly switched on to preventing that and protecting those threads, and you're not going to be storing your regulators on like a dusty shelf or anything. But yeah, all of the metal on most second stages, there are some different ones. All of the metal is chrome plated marine grade brass, which is a pretty soft metal. So it's really easy to bruise it and strip threads. So if you're taking your hoses on and off and on and off, you're just increasing the chances of you accidentally like mis-threading it. And the threads on hoses and first stages are pretty fine. So you can like chip the chrome plating, and if you mis-thread it, you can damage the thread, ideally on your hose, because that's a lot cheaper to replace than this. If you damage a thread on your first stage, there's very little that you can do. It really is just a matter of getting a replacement part, or a replacement first stage altogether. That's my like first instinct, is like be careful not to cross thread it. And then, yeah, it's mainly down to contaminants from getting in, because on every first stage, even if you just buy it as a first stage, you won't get every single port plug in it. You'll usually have a blank, and when you buy a new regulator with a second stage attached, of course the hose comes attached onto it, so you won't get that extra port plug. Now, when you buy a first stage, just as a first stage, you do get a, I don't want to call it a blanking plug, but it's to protect it from contaminants. It's very similar to these that you put on the end of hoses to protect the threads, and you get like the male version of that to go into the first stage, just to protect those threads, but also stop contaminants from getting in, because if dust and just crud and stuff just gets on the inside, it can block things, it can stop things from moving. You're also exposing the lubricants and the O-rings and the seals on the inside to a bit more ozone, so they're going to degrade a bit faster, they're going to dry out a little bit faster. But as long as you plug it up, that should be perfectly fine. Yeah, ideally hoses should be stored as horizontally or as like flat as possible, because otherwise, yeah, you do get that kind of natural bending where it just finds a natural curve, which you don't really want. Ideally they should be nice and flat. But storing them in like a snug little regulator bag, no, because then you are going to put extra tension on that hose, especially around the ferrules, which is this metal section here. You don't want any of that, and you don't want it to be wrapped up too tight. Ideally, they should be as flat as possible. So yeah, if you do have an area where like a shelf where you can lay out your regulators as flat as possible, that would be best. But as long as you know what you're doing, yeah, no real objections to disassembling them. It is really just look after them, look after those threads, and when you're redoing them, oh, my spanners are gone. Just be careful not to like scratch your first stage, because that's a real easy way. And it's a pretty common thing for new technicians to do, is as they're putting in a new hose or removing an old hose, is you get the spanner and it's either the wrong size, so there's a bit of wiggle on the nut, or they angle it in a way that when you tighten it up, it actually scratches the chrome, just the spanner itself. So that's a really easy way to damage your first stage, and also over or under torquing it. So hoses should go in at 5 Newton meters. I mean, that's apex, like how tight you should put a hose in. I believe they're 5 Newton meters. Some others are a little bit less, I believe, but it's not a lot. It's a matter of get it finger tight and then just nip it up. If you do it too much, you're just going to strip those threads, and you're going to damage the metal on both. So do be careful with that. As long as you know what you're doing and you've got the right tools and you're very careful with them, yeah, there's no real downside to disassembling your regulator if that's what you really want to do. Yeah, unless you're like continually changing your regulator configuration, like going from singles to twins and side mount or whatever, there's not a huge reason to disassembling your first stage. It is important to try and keep your hoses as straight as possible to prevent this kind of natural bending, but it's not the end of the world if your hose is a little bit bendy. They exist. I personally do, but mainly because I use them for like demonstration purposes. It is just handy just to get a first stage or a second stage out, or a loose hose, but and then I can reassemble them as I need to. But for my other Apex first stage and the second stage, that is usually just in its regulator bag, assembled. I don't bother pulling it apart because it's just extra work really. And if you're going on holiday sort of 4 times a year, yeah, you're going to be assembling and disassembling them quite frequently, every few months or so. So I wouldn't worry too much about doing it, but if you are going to do it, just be careful. Make sure you're not going to cross thread them at all, and keep any contaminants out of the hoses, because you don't want like dust and stuff from getting inside. Pretty good way to inspect for damage though. If you're constantly looking at each individual component of the of your regulators, that is a good thing, because a lot of people just throw it away in their regulator bag and don't really think about it until like the week before their big dive trip. So yeah, it is a pretty good idea to double check. But yeah, look after the threads. Try to keep contaminants out, try to keep moisture out as well. With a lot of new hoses, they come with like one of those little silica gel packets, because you don't want moisture on the inside of the hose, because it can rot the inside, which is a bad thing. And if it's attached onto a regulator, it's hard for water to get in, but if you disassemble it, then moisture can get in. Otherwise, yeah, just take it easy. try not to cross thread it, and make sure you use the right size spanner or wrench, depending on what you call them. But yeah, any other questions, by all means, pop them down in the comment section underneath this video. Use the AskMark hashtag to get it featured in an up and coming video. And of course, remember to head over to our website, scubadivingmag.com. Check out our magazine, all our news articles and advice videos. Like and subscribe here on YouTube. Thank you for watching, everybody, and of course, safe diving.